Peace, everyone. I just found out that Thlopthlocco Tribal Town, one of the three separate federal recognized Muskogee tribal towns, the other two being Alabama Kasardi and the other being Kieleji, Thlopthlocco no longer has a website. Now, there's been a lot going on. I'm going to unpack a few things with you guys because members of my family, matrilineal members of my family, have had dealings with Thlopthlocco. Now, not just because the Golden Pony Casino exists, right? When people think tribal town, back when I lived out there, they thought, the Golden Pony. They didn't know what a tribal town actually was. There's a lot of disconnect from that part of our culture, right? So, but yeah, Thlopthlocco owns the Golden Pony. That's their casino. And yeah, so due to some errors, my great aunt was a member of Thlopthlocco for a number of years, and they paid, I think, her gas bill or electricity or something every month. Now, ironically enough, when I went back there and I started researching family history and going through the Okemah hospital and trying to do all my medical stuff in Oklahoma, I was at the archive in Okmulgee, and I think her name was Rose. She worked there, and she looked at my documents. She's like, just be very careful because they're disenrolling people. I'm thinking, oh crap, they're going to disenroll me from the tribe, right? Because there's not an unbroken line of matrilineal tribal town affiliation on my great-grandmother's Campbell Creek roll. She's listed as Thlopthlocco, right? Her mother is listed as Greenleaf, and her maternal grandmother was posthumously listed as being Thlopthlocco. Now, I would find out later on that my great-grandmother's maternal aunt was listed as Greenleaf, and the mother, the same, grandmother of my great-grandma, was also listed at Greenleaf posthumously on the same Campbell Creek roll, but a different card. So there's inconsistencies there. But because they saw, oh, yeah, she's Thlopthlocco, and, somebody told my aunt, my great aunt, hey, you can become a part of Thlopthlocco Tribal Town too. And obviously people weren't checking the records very well, okay? Because if you go back to 1890, I think they required, going back to the 1890 rolls, they weren't going by the Campbell Creek roll, even though they were using that to find other information. In fact, if you brought that and it said, oh, you're Thlopthlocco, and oh yeah, in 1890, they're also listed as Thlopthlocco. Well, they would take that as proof without actually getting the microfiche or microfilm of the 1890 Thlopthlocco census. I believe it was 1890, not 1895. It could have been 1895. It's been 15 years since I looked at the website back then, that version of the website. It's been maybe a couple months since I looked at the most recent version. I'm going to get into that, okay? So, ironically enough, shortly after I moved back there, she gets disenrolled. And she asked me if I had gone to see Thlopthlocco and, try to get enrolled. I'm like, no, I didn't. I went to Okmulgee and looked at the archive, and they mentioned something about this, but I didn't go to Thlopthlocco myself. See, she and her son both got letters of disenrollment. Turns out we have another cousin who was trying to get on, and that probably triggered the other relatives that were on the records being booted off. Now, bit of backdrop on this. It was months or maybe a year prior, I remember seeing an article on the subject. Thlopthlocco was being audited for padding the records with members that shouldn't have been on board. Now, when I talked to Aunt Arlene, may she rest in peace, she was even telling me that, like, at one point they had a chief that shouldn't have even been in Thlopthlocco, much less be the chief of Thlopthlocco, right? There's all kinds of stuff going on. So when I told her my part of the story, she believed me. And she also asked me to write a letter of appeal, which I did. Unfortunately, I delivered it like literally a day late. I must have misread. It was like, maybe it was on the 28th, and I brought it on the 29th or something like that. I misread the last number, right? Brought it in. The guy in charge of enrollment was also a pastor apparently at one of the Indian churches. He saw it. He's like, oh, he looked at the day. He's like, oh yeah, I can't take this. He handed it right back to me. He didn't like look at anything, read anything beyond that. Just, oh yeah, sorry, it's too late. I can't help you. It's like, oh, well, thanks. And just walked off. It's like, oh, I'm like, oh, okay. I may not have even said thanks. I can't remember, but I wasn't really too happy about that because I'm trying to help her out. I'm trying to fix what happened in case for some reason simply my presence alone magically caused her to get disenrolled. I was kind of freaked out. Like, how did this happen? I don't think Rose told anybody. I certainly didn't give her Aunt Arlene's name or her son's name or anyone else, right? So I don't think she was trying to get anyone disenrolled. She kind of got questioned, like, look, just so you know, they're starting to disenroll people. And again, I thought she was talking about the entire Muskogee Nation, not specifically Thlopthlocco. So, so I misunderstood her, I think. And yeah, that interesting stuff. So what I remember on their website at the time is that it had to be matrilineal because that's how tribal towns are passed on as mother to child traditionally. I mean, if your father is Indian and your mother's not, that might be a different story. And that was the story with them. You see, if your father was Thlopthlocco and your mother was non-Indian, period, you can join Thlopthlocco. If your mother's father was Thlopthlocco and your mother's mother was a non-Indian, you can join Thlopthlocco. Basically, if your mother was non-Indian, your father's mother was non-Indian, your father's father was Thlopthlocco, you could become Thlopthlocco. There's a wide range of possibilities for becoming a part of Thlopthlocco back then. But if your mother was Muskogee and it was listed that she belonged to Greenleaf, which is where we actually belong, well, then you can't be a part of Thlopthlocco because you already belong to another tribal town. Now, my great-great-grandfather was listed at Thlopthlocco with his other children before my great-grandma was born, before he remarried and had her, okay? So, but he wasn't a Thlopthlocco. His late wife belonged to Thlopthlocco, okay? So for some reason, and this, I got to figure out which role. It might have been 1890, it might have been 1895. I'm trying to figure it out. I need to go take a look at my massive archives I printed up 15, 14, 13 years ago. And yeah, print that stuff up. But this is what was going on. And so if he had been a member for real, still his daughter could not have been because her mother was Greenleaf. But if he married a white woman and that white woman was the mother of my great-grandma, right, then being a matrilineal descendant of her, I could have been a Thlopthlocco member if he had been an actual Thlopthlocco member, right? That's the weird thing about the way they do it, right? And it kind of makes sense, but it's also like, okay, but I'll tell you guys an interesting story. Oh, but first I want to say that recently on their website and also on I think a Facebook group, I remember seeing very distinctly images of Thlopthlocco, Matrilineal Creek Tribal Town, and all these pictures in Okemah and all this stuff. I'm going like, okay, that's, maybe it was Muskogee News. I have to double check. But I saw this and I'm going, okay, they're pushing the Matrilineal Tribal Town thing. What about if your father was Thlopthlocco and your mother is a white person or a black person or an Asian person, right? So, not so matrilineal now, is it? Right? Just giving a bit of fair criticism there, right? So, but there was a case, and maybe I shouldn't say the name of this guy, but I'm not going to say his name. His grandson might see this video someday and get miffed at me. I don't want him getting chibuggy at me, right? So, but anyway, he belonged to Thlopthlocco, okay? His father was white, his mother was Creek and full blood, and he belonged to Thlopthlocco, right? His wife belonged, I believe, to Alabama Casardi. Now, her father was Seminole. Her mother was Alabama Casardi. I think it was Alabama. I don't think it was Kieleji. I think it was Alabama Casardi, right? So, but he wanted his children to become a Thlopthlocco. So they thought that the whole belonging to a different tribal town meant belonging to a separate federally recognized tribal town. Okay, as I mentioned, you got Alabama Casardi, Kieleji, and Thlopthlocco. In 1939, I believe, is when they got their own federal recognition, separate from Muskogee Creek Nation. You could be a citizen of both because technically these other towns are historically connected. That's the way they kind of skirt through it. And it does piss a few people off, by the way. Like if you're running for the office of principal chief, but you belong to Thlopthlocco, it's like, well, where's your loyalty, right? That's the question. As was, I believe, the criticism, some criticism towards Tim Goodvoice, okay, during the last election for principal chief. So, anyhow, so what he did is like, I guess, here's the problem. If you leave Muskogee Nation, for example, to go join a different tribe and they say no, Creek Nation won't let you back in. They might let your kids back in. They might let if your kids were not already enrolled, you might be able to get them enrolled, but you're not getting enrolled again, okay? So your descendants might be enrollable, but you're no longer enrollable. They're not going to take you in, okay? That's what happens. So be very careful. If you have intertribal, federally recognized Oklahoma tribal ancestry, you decide which tribe you're going to be a citizen of, and you stick with it, okay? I would always opt for Muskogee Nation, always opt in for that because that's, we take better care of our people. Despite the many complaints of people on the internet, we take better care of our people. It's the way it is. It's the way it's always been, okay? So, and that's what I heard from hospitals, okay? So that tells you something. Now, I like a lot of what Chickasaw Nation is doing. I like their videos. I like what they're producing. They have a very good online presence. I respect that. I don't know how good they are about the medical health of their citizens, though. I don't have that information. So, but I have a lot of respect for Chickasaw Nation, okay? So, back to this family, okay? So, the husband is Thlopthlocco, the wife is Alabama Casardi, and so she disenrolls herself from that, hoping that that'll allow their children to become Thlopthlocco. Doesn't work. Their children still can't be Thlopthlocco, and now she can't go back to Alabama Casardi. Now, I remember he's at Matt Darlene's house. It was like in 2010. And he's saying, like, I swear, before I die, this grandson, he has a grandson with him, who just has a big smile on his face, right? Just listening to the whole story. Just a quiet little Indian boy, just, smiling, listening to the story. And, it's, he's like, before I die, I'll make sure he's Thlopthlocco, right? I don't know if it ever happened. Okay, like, I don't know if that's their daughter's son or their son's son. If it's their daughter's son, well, that kid could become Alabama Casardi, okay? Why they thought it was a good idea, why they thought it was necessary to enroll the kids in his tribal town, I don't know if there's more benefits. That's what he was trying to do. I don't know. I do know that they both had some drug issues, and that may have affected their decision-making. That's also why I'm not saying the name of these people, okay? So yeah, I'm just saying, like, but this all happened on the same time. Like, I show up months to maybe a year prior. I think it was like, within a year of me going back there, Thlopthlocco gets busted, I think, by the Department of Interior, BIA, whoever, or maybe someone drops a dime on them, I don't know, for enrolling too many people in the tribe that shouldn't have been members, right? For having a chief that's not even supposed to be their chief, because he's not even really supposed to be Thlopthlocco. Then I show up, magically my aunt and her son get disenrolled. Turns out one of my cousins, the one that my Aunt Arlene didn't like because he disrespected her, and I don't blame her. He said some disrespectful things about her to me through Facebook message, and I relayed that back to her, and she's like, if you go visit him, don't talk to me anymore. Like, oh, you can stay here with me, I love you, but if you go talk to him, I'm going to be mad at you. I'm like, okay, Aunt Early, I'm not going to go see this guy. But he tried to get enrolled. All these dominoes lined up at the same time. I just magically showed up in the middle of all these things. And like, so yeah, I felt the urge to try to get her to appeal their decision, right? Considering all the existing shenanigans, like, should they have disenrolled her? You know, but the reality is this: she should never have been enrolled in the first place with Thlopthlocco. We were always Greenleaf people. If I go back to the 1882 census, I can see the entire family that that were alive, and also even some that were dead, that show up on the Campbell Creek roll as being, like, they show up as Greenleaf on both. It's only my great grandma on the Campbell Creek roll where she's listed at Thlopthlocco, and where her maternal grandmother only on that document is listed as Thlopthlocco. Because on the other posthumous document, a card in the same series of documents, she's listed as Greenleaf, and on 1882 she's listed as Greenleaf, and she doesn't show up in 1890 or 1895 because she was probably dead. So, for all I know, like, she could have died in childbirth, giving birth to Sally. I don't know. But in any case, now Thlopthlocco has no website. They have no website. Okay, all of their citizenship criteria, they had their whole application and stuff online back in 2010. That all disappeared a long time ago. Now they have this other website. Well, not now, but months ago, they had this website showing all of their stuff and what they're doing and how great their stuff is. And now there's no website. Okay, like, it's not showing up. I do Google search, I can't find it. What the heck happened to Thlopthlocco's website? That's what I want to know. Okay. Are they getting their casino taken away? I don't know what's going on with these guys. Or are they just like, oh, we're gonna throw it all up in the air, wait till the ships fall down again, and then decide who's actually in charge of things? Like, I don't know. Like, it seems like they've been pretty disorganized and inconsistent for a while. And yeah. I don't know. So yeah, I thought I'd talk about them for a little bit, just give you guys sort of my background on my own dealings, my own brief dealings, my great aunt's, may she rest in peace, her dealings with them, and just yeah, and for any of my relatives, any of my direct maternal line relatives, and even those whose fathers are maternal line descendants, right? So and whose mothers are non-Indian, okay, or non-Muskogee at least. We were never Thlopthlocco. Greenleaf is a tribal town that Effie belonged to by lineage, okay? So that's it. That is it. So yeah. I'm curious what happens next with Thlopthlocco, because when I saw the whole Thlopthlocco Matrilineal Creek Tribal Town picture showing up, they're showing all their most full-blooded looking, members, right? But you go on the website and it's like, not everyone looks like a full-blood, not everyone looks like a half-blood, all these different looks, right? But then it's like in public, oh, we're going to show all this, right? We're going to show the full-bloods, the matrilineal full-bloods, allegedly on both counts. And so I'm just kind of curious what's really going on with Thlopthlocco. So anyway, let me know if you guys have any answers, because I'd love to know what's going on. I'd love to know, just out of morbid curiosity. I want to know what's going on. So please leave some comments if you guys message me, and let me know. All right. Mado for watching, and Hadam Chi Chatlis.